Hello. I've been asked about how we train our clergy in this diocese. There is an application process, and it's long, and it's involved, and it has to be. We take seriously St. Paul's injunction not to lay hands on any man suddenly. Um, we've got to be very careful about who we uh, present for ordination. And indeed, it has to be someone in whom we discern uh, Christ's call, God's call. So once we have a candidate, once we have someone come up for ordination, then what do we do? Well, we're lucky enough in our diocese to have two fantastic training bodies that are affiliated. We have the Victoria College London, and we have the Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi Christian University. And there's a lot of communication between the two. And it does mean that we have an opportunity to present our ordination candidates with training and programs of study that will fit them for the clergy. Um, Indeed, Johann Pestalozzi is an interesting case in point. He's what I would consider to be the father of modern teaching. Considering that at a time where teaching was simply learning everything by repeat, in parrot fashion, Pestalozzi opens up the idea of experiments, field trips, learning for oneself. Indeed, I think you really get a sense of, in his work, you get a sense of a love of learning and trying to instill that love of learning in people, not just children, but adults as well. Um, in my mind, there are two words that are sort of opposite as far as I can see. There's indoctrination, and then there is education. And they're both Latin, of Latin roots. Indoctrination, putting doctrine in, and education, drawing out. Um, Indoctrination we see as being rather negative, don't we? We think about people who have been indoctrinated into sort of cultist practices. But education we see as something a little bit more um, representing the freedom of the person. And I tend to agree with that. As a priest, there are things that you need to know. There has to be a way for you to communicate the faith to the people around you. You have to understand the enormity of the sacraments, how they are to be administered, what they're for. You have to be able to answer questions about the faith very carefully, particularly when challenged by people who have less than pure motives. So, yes, there are lots of things that a priest needs to know, but that doesn't mean to say that we need to take a block of doctrine and ram it down someone's throat. There are necessary doctrines that lead us to Christ, doctrines that tell us the truth. That's why doctrine, of course, is so important, particularly in Anglican Catholic thought, where it's the truth that matters. You cannot have a sort of a laissez-faire attitude to doctrine, because doctrine brings you not only into the intellectual uh, understanding of Christ, but spiritually as well. And Pestalozzi, his work, trying to allow people to put their spirits, their souls into their education. to draw something out of them, to draw that understanding, so that what then comes in is something holy, something um, true, something lovely. So, for a priest, I think, yes, there has to be a lot of intellectual work. You have to be a well-educated priest. But when I say that, I have to sort of put a big caveat in here, because it is not the mind that needs all the reinforcement. It's the soul, it's the spirit. A priest needs to be a holy person. And while I think, I speak for many of my colleagues, we don't feel that holy, we don't live up to those standards are there. And we must reach for them. And with Christ's help, only with Christ's help, can we attain them. So, in this age, the age we're in at the moment, where the priesthood is constantly being denigrated, mainly by actions of perverse priests themselves. I look around and I hear all over the place priests, people who've been ordained in various jurisdictions, priests spouting nonsense, priests spouting heresies, priests sp- spreading very dangerous heresies that kill the spirits of the people who listen to them, who follow them. And it is the duty of every Christian priest to lead people to Christ through word and through sacrament. The grace of God experienced in the sacraments, the grace of God encountered through reading the Holy Scriptures, reading the liturgy, and participating in worship, true worship. And so it's not, book knowledge is not enough. And I've seen time and again educated priests, they've got all their doctorates, they've got all their degrees, they've gone to great universities, they've studied under great people. And I've seen them fall away. I've seen people leave, educated people leave, not being able to cope with the pressure of being a priest, because the priesthood centers around holiness, centers around a spiritual intelligence, not just an intellectual one. And those uh, authorities that value book learning, degrees, doctorates, that sort of thing, if they value those above, if they value that book learning, all that paperwork above learning to be a disciple of Christ, learning to plug into the wealth and the spirit of the apostles, the first Christians, and using their teaching and holding fast to that faith that was once delivered to the saints. Well, that that's a travesty, because that's where churches fail, and great churches fail. Respectability is another issue, because the priest mustn't, how can I put this, mustn't care more about his reputation than the well-being of his cure. Bishops must have the well-being of their flock before all the grandiose titles and all the fine vestments. Those fine vestments aren't for him, they're for his flock to see through him the majesty of Christ. And he needs to remember that he must decrease, so that Christ may increase and increase in the people. It's the Christians that matter. It is the love of every single human being that matters. And again, Pestalozzi, you see that in his pedagogy, the way he tries to produce this method of teaching children, so that it isn't about being sitting at the feet of uh, a grand doctor who teaches stuff that you don't understand, and you go away thinking, "What on earth brunette was that about?" It doesn't matter. I've been taught by Doctor X. You know, doesn't matter. Being taught by Doctor X doesn't matter if Doctor X has told you nothing. It's a beautiful phrase in computing, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Same is true for us. So the calling of a Christian priest is huge, and in this diocese we train our priests. We look for spirituality, that willingness to grow spiritually, to embrace humility. Our diocese is tiny. Right? We have a very small collection of priests, but I know my brother priests. I know them well, and they are humble. And that is the wonderful thing. There is a humility there. There's a humility in our bishop. Um, and that encourages me as a priest in this diocese with my community, with my confraternity, my priests. And it's how we minister to those who come to us and say, you know, I hunger and thirst after righteousness. Give it to me. Help me find it. And that's what we have to do as priests. And we can only help people find righteousness if we know where righteousness is. And righteousness is not just in here, it's in here as well. We have to build up our flock and build them up well. So God bless you. God bless you if you are trying to discern your vocation into the priesthood. God show you his call for you and make you ready to accept the hardship of being a spiritual person and the high standards of holiness and what they mean. God bless you if you're looking for holy men and women, if you're looking for a holy priest, if you're looking for a holy bishop, if you're searching for these people. God reward your search and find you someone in whom you can put you can trust to lead you to the one true and eternal Christ. And God bless you that we may all, as one Catholic Church, see the beauty of Christ and know him just as Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi draws us to, and indeed the Church Fathers and all those who love Christ. God bless you, and please pray for me.